Hi students, it's Mrs. T, and this is your second lecture this week that I'm going to provide for you for cultural identity, ethnic identity, social identity, and the way that that affects our landscapes, the way that the culture's norms and gender roles in particular for this topic. You can see that I've got that written on the Word document behind me, how gender roles affect your social climate and the way that you use space in your world, in your region. So the last time we were together, we looked at the way that you can interpret maps of different cities where certain people congregate, how that cycle of succession of one ethnic group to the next and economic group to the next kind of uses those spaces within the city, and it becomes identified as this general region, this perceptual region of where one particular race or ethnic group occupies or doesn't occupy, kind of territories of space. So in the gender roles conversation that we're going to have, I remember that last week when I was going over this myself, I had to kind of truncate, means shorten the video. I can't remember what exactly happened. Probably my dog bombed it or something. But so I'm going to show you a video from the Origin of Everything channel on how sex and gender became linked, and the difference in gender identity and sexuality and that kind of thing. There will also be a video that you are going to watch about a third gender category in India, and you can do some research about this third gender category. You will find that there are many cultures throughout Asia and the Middle East that have this intersectionality, one of the words that I'm going to talk to you about today. Intersectionality in cultural identity and ethnic identity, gender identity, and the way society views and segregates and places different roles and expectations on different people who have different identities other than some of the identities that we're familiar with in the United States. So you'll watch, it's about the hijras of India. So I will show you this video also, and that'll round out this week. Okay, so this particular short lesson with me is about gender roles, which are duties. A role is a set of duties or expected behaviors that go along with something. So you can have race roles or ethnic roles, or in this case, gender roles, which technically the term applies to the masculinity versus femininity that we were talking about in a previous lecture. What sorts of duties and expected behaviors are you supposed to have if you are male? And society mandates this. Remember, we said that these are culturally constructed definitions. And what expected behaviors and duties do you have associated with your female nature if you are and the femininity side of the gender spectrum? And so that's what gender role means. Now, this concept of intersectionality is something that you'll hear across the social sciences. My cursor's not working right to highlight it for you just now. But intersectionality is this concept where there are multiple marginal places in society where you and the people with your kind of social identity can occupy. Now, when I say marginal, I'm referring back to that power structure that we said geographers tend to examine how people use space and are positioned in the cultural landscape compared to people who are in power. So your ethnic, your social, your cultural identity can be that of people who are in power, or it can be that of people who have less power, less authority, or no power, no authority in society. And there can be multiple factors that come into play in giving you authority, or I don't like the word giving. It's a power word though, so let me keep that word in there. So your intersectionality is really think of an intersection at any place that you travel in your regular cyclical migration around town. You come to a stop sign at an intersection, and there are going to be multiple cars converging at that spot. And that's where this word intersectionality comes into play. Is your racial group and your ethnic group and your gender category and your language group, are all of these things intersecting at a point that gives you multiple marginality compared to the power structure? If you're in the United States, for instance, if you are non-white, non-Christian, non-male, etc., non-heterosexual, etc., then those are your multiple marginalities. And the point at which those marginalities cross is your intersectionality. And it really complicates the social identity that you have and the cultural identity that you live on a daily basis. Okay, so worldwide, we're going to look at gender roles today because worldwide there are very different ideas of gender roles. In the United States, we are an industrialized nation. Even though we have gender inequality, we have a lot more female representation in the workforce, in government, in higher education, in all kinds of major facets of our economy and social life. We have female participation. However, in other parts of the world, still today, there exists a very, what I guess you'd call, and look at my air quotes, traditional type of gender role, whereas women are supposed to occupy the home and domestic sphere, and males are supposed to occupy the public or social sphere, the economic function in society as a whole. And so that gender binary, as we came to refer to it, is still very much alive in lots of places in the world. So one of the examples that I want to show you today in our short time together is Saudi Arabia. Saudi Arabia is a very wealthy nation in the Middle East. It's a kingdom, and I'm looking at your favorite research site and mine, Wikipedia, just for some basic information here. Of course, you know that you would have to verify all of this information and make sure that these citations are valid information. But let me show you. I want to talk about women's right to vote, and this is an example of the binary relationship of females versus males in society, where males have the public persona and females have the household or the domestic persona. So in 2005 was the very first time, yes, 2005, we're only talking about 15 years ago. In 2005 was the first discussion of women voting in elections in Saudi Arabia, because women are seen in the legal structure as being equal to, well, I'm saying this awkwardly. Let me begin again. 3 women equal 1 man in Islamic societies, in strict Islamic societies that adhere to Islamic law. So the ethnic identity of Islam, if you have strict, maybe does the word orthodox apply, Islamic law, in the Quran and the Hadith of the Prophet, it specifies that females are worth only 1/3 the social value of a male. So all of the other social institutions in these cultures are designed around this concept. Saudi Arabia is one of these cultures that holds the notion that females have lesser social value than males do. And so you see that females are confined to different spaces within the cities. There are places where they can and cannot travel alone, and in public places, they are not allowed to travel without a male relative. So you can do some research and find out a little bit more on that. I'm getting a little bit out of what I wanted to talk to you about here. But in 2015, that was the first time that women were allowed not only to vote, but also run for office in Saudi Arabia. And even though their voter registration was validated at that time, because of other norms about not being able to have movement within a public sphere without a male representation, many females were not able to exercise that right to vote because their male relative must agree to accompany them to any and every activity. Most females were not allowed to work outside the home until just this most recent change in women's rights in Saudi Arabia. Also, I recall a news story that I read around this time in which females were being polled about what sorts of jobs they would be interested in taking in society, and many said that they would like to work at an underwear store so that they could be females selling female underwear to other females rather than a male selling the underwear to the female with the female's male relative present. So think about the awkwardness maybe that would hold for some of us in society if that was how the binary gender roles existed. So when you're finishing up reading chapters 5 and 6, and when you're looking at this video with some of the topics that I've covered in it, you will also have a video from the Origin of Everything channel to cover this binary idea of genders and gender roles, and a third video, I guess it's going to be a fourth video for this week, about the role of hijras, a third gender category in India. And please, when you're watching this, the video that I post for you, use a critical eye and try to get those 5 themes of geography and what's happening regarding geographic questions in the video when you're learning about this alternative gender role in India. So thank you for your time today, and I look forward to the reaction papers this week because hopefully you have a lot of really cool stuff to talk about.